Hi everyone, just wanted to start out this presentation by explaining who or what is a mandated reporter. So a mandated reporter is anyone that is required by the federal government, well it's both state and federal governments, to report instances or evidence of child abuse. So it's pretty much anyone who is in any sort of public role that comes in contact with children, anyone and everyone who works at a school, medical personnel. So I have a couple lists. So we have firefighters, medical personnel, so nurses, doctors, paramedics, EMTs, clergy or members of church staff, school personnel, so teachers, aides, coaches, administration, the secretary, the librarian, anyone who's on a school campus, the custodian, anybody and everybody, police officers, and it's actually kind of interesting because the list keeps growing. So every couple years, it's like they add more people to the list. So a couple that surprised me were film processing technologies. Technicians, computer repair technicians, and obviously this is for instances of child pornography. So as technology keeps growing and different ways of exploiting children and finding instances of abuse also grow with it, there's going to be more people that are mandated by the state. I was kind of surprised by those, but unfortunately they make sense. So pretty much anyone who's a public official that is a government official, obviously your social workers, your therapists, those types of individuals are mandated reporters. So little brief history on the mandated reporter. So the movement started in 1962. There was a book called The Battered Child Syndrome, which was published by Dr. Henry Kemp and Brant Steele. And up until 1962, the only people that were required by law to report child abuse were physicians, so any type of doctor that saw it. So this book was designed to help doctors see the signs of child abuse, and with the publication, I think the movements started growing because people were like, oh, that's child abuse? Is that child abuse? Oh, this is child abuse? So they started recognizing it and sort of understanding that this wasn't some like rare instance. Child abuse is actually pretty widespread, unfortunately. So that started in 62. The movement really got momentum in 1963. And in 1975, the first law passed, which was, the official title was the Child Abuse Reporting Law. In 1976, reporters were granted immunity, and in 1980 California repealed and replaced the existing laws. It became the Child Abuse Reporting Law. In 1987 it was amended and renamed the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Law. So it started out just as abuse, but neglect was then added under the umbrella that this law has jurisdiction over. The most recent change to this law, besides adding different roles into the mandated to be qualified as a mandated reporter, was in 2015. California passed a bill that I'll talk about later that requires mandated annual training for anyone at a school. So there's different types of training for different professionals. If you're in the medical profession, you have a different type of training than we do as educators, so on and so forth. If you're in law enforcement, all those types of things. So each role has different training. So those are the basics that we need to be aware of as educators. Let me see. Oh, and then I just wanted to kind of throw this out there. When you go on the website, the California mandated reporting, mandatedreportercalifornia.com, it shows a list of different professionals and professions, and just for the record, teacher is number one on the list. So we are the number one sought after reporter. And, it makes sense, just the amount of time that we spend with our kids, that we might see our students, call them kids, we might see them more than their parents do in some instances if mom and dad are working. So we might have the opportunity to see some things that the parents might not. But we're number one on the list, so just for the record, throwing that out there. So that's a brief history, and we'll go into some of the details here in a second.